Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Rockets. Today I sit down to talk with Amanda Howard, founder and CEO of Amanda Howard Real Estate, which opened here in Huntsville in 2009, and who is most recently the CEO of Amanda Howard Sotheby International Realty, which began operation in June of 2018. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So I know you moved here in Huntsville in 2004. Can you tell me a little bit about what you were doing prior to moving here in Huntsville and kind of what interested you in moving here?
Sure. What I was doing was figuring out what I wanted to do in life.
Okay.
Is the good baseline of that. I was having our babies. My husband and I were transferring. We had lived in Chicago for a couple years. We had our first child. We ended up needing to go back to our hometown of Jupiter, Florida,
Okay.
and take care of his family and some arrangements they needed to help with their residential home down there. And so once we moved down there, I ended up getting pregnant with the second one. And I was at a phase in my life where I was like looking to find myself and looking to recreate myself because I didn't feel at home in Chicago, where we were excited to go visit for a couple of years. And it was a great base start for my husband's business. But then moving back to our hometown, he thought, well, maybe we'll settle back at our hometown. And I didn't feel like I was home. So he said, honey, I just want you to be happy. I want you to find yourself. And my parents were transferred with Publix grocery store that started in Florida. It's a Florida-based company. And they took the transfer to move up to actually Owens Crossroads.
Okay.
So it's the Hampton Cove area. That was their opening Publix. And by visiting my parents up here, I just fell in love with the area.
Really?
I had a lot of romantic notions. It was nothing intellectual.
Yeah.
I just was like, once this baby is out, I wanted my girls to move to a place that had a change of season because it was all flat and it's South Florida. It's just hot all the time.
Yes.
And I'm like, the change of season is so beautiful. And I love the little square and we're going to go hiking every weekend and they're going to have Southern accents. None of that happened, but we did make the move, and it's been the best move that we could have ever made.
And, I mean, Huntsville in 2004, 2005 was a completely different city than what it is today, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about that throughout the episode.
That's
but
right.
I mean, it is such a funny thing because I guess at the time most people would probably say that we're from Huntsville, whereas Huntsville's not big enough. I'm ready to get out of it, and then you came and you see it, and you're like, Huntsville's perfect. It's like this. It's the perfect size. There's the quiet side. There's the downtown. There's the mountains. There's everything in between. But most people
friendly.
most people that lived here would probably be like, I want to get out of here. I want to get to Chicago. I want to get to Florida. And
well, then I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just can't stand this little town that I grew up in. Now everybody wants to be back in Jupiter, Florida. It's one of it's one of the largest small communities in South Florida.
Wow.
And Tiger Woods is there. Burt Reynolds grew up there. We actually knew Burt Reynolds.
Wow.
And so it's quite an amazing place. I don't know what was wrong with me.
So I know you got into real estate in like 1999, but when you moved here as a kind of your first full year of real estate after becoming a license in Alabama, you closed on 77 homes in your first full year in a new city as a new realtor here. What was that experience like?
That is what happens when you know you have to succeed because you have to put your babies in diapers and food in their bellies, and you're the only thing you can gamble on is yourself. Because we made that move completely based off of, again, a romantic notion. I just knew I wanted to be somewhere where I felt was a place I could raise my family, my girls. My husband was fantastic and very supportive to say, honey, we'll pick up and move wherever you want. Where do you want to go? And I said, I just know I can't be a stay-at-home mom. I realized that about myself.
Yeah.
That's an admirable career and life, but I couldn't do it. I needed to be social. I needed to be with people. I needed that energy. It was making me depressed, not being around people.
Yeah.
So that's why he was so encouraging of me to find that place. And so in order to do that, I knew I needed the support of family. And with my family being here in Owens Crossroads, that's why we made the move. And so I had to hit the ground running because we had no real structure or plan. He needed to go find a job. We were in a place that we didn't know of anyone except for my parents, who were also new to town and really shy and quiet. And they're in Owens Crossroads. They're not really well connected.
Yeah.
So I was, in essence, dropping into a place I didn't know the streets. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anyone. We didn't have any jobs. So I showed up at their home at Christmas. Said, guess what? We have a little U-Haul behind us and we're moving in. So the four of us moved into their little 1,400 square foot home. They were happy as larks because they had their two grandbabies. Yeah. And then I got my license in January of 2004. And then that's when I just started door knocking. I didn't have any savings. My husband was out looking for work. I didn't want to live in my parents' house. We were going to kill each other. And they're wonderful people, but that's just tight on anybody.
100%.
So I put them in the car and I would go door knocking with my kids. And I was just literally beating the streets, door knocking, and just talking to anybody I could that would give me the moment in time.
Wow. I mean, like, what was the real estate market like in 2004, 2005 when you first came here?
It was a good market. I didn't understand the market.
Yeah.
So looking back, it really was a good time for me to make a move. It was, it was a God thing. I was just following my path, but the market then had that turn of 2006, as you were, we were kind of alluding to just before off era. Sorry about that, but the market took that turn. I didn't know anything but the bottom.
Yeah.
So the 2004 market to me was still horrible because I'm learning the streets. I don't have a network. I don't have a sphere of influence. I am having to literally door knock just to meet people or stand in the longest line possible at Publix with my name tag, just hoping people will talk to me.
Wow.
So that was my thought process around business. And there was nobody here locally for me to team up with. Teams were not a thing back then. So the market was just what it was. I didn't pay attention. I didn't even notice the market. All I noticed was what I had to do to meet people, and we're a people-to-people business. So I was treating people the way I knew they would want to be treated or how I would want to be treated. And I knew what to do to help sell a home. So I needed just the people.
Yeah. I mean, when did you think you finally knew and understood the Huntsville market? Like, how long did it take you to finally figure out, like, okay, here's kind of what to expect in Owens Crossroads and in Huntsville and in Madison, and here's kind of what the market looks like for new people coming and first-time home buyers. Like, when did you kind of fully grasp that?
I would say it was probably a good year and a half.
Wow. Okay.
Because it's not just understanding that first I had to learn the streets and even where Owens Crossroads versus Madison was. It was then learning, first I just needed to focus on just getting the business.
Yeah.
And then once I had the luxury of having the business and some extra time, because I was already putting in 60 hours a week just on that, then any spare moments I had, then I started doing research on the market.
Okay.
Because I was still learning and struggling to find, not struggling, that's a bad word for struggling to find people, but it didn't come easy either. I had to work at it to find people. I then started a real estate show in 2006, 2007. Okay. And that was my way to start then really understanding the market. Okay. So that's why it took about a year and a half in, and this possibility presented itself to me. Actually, it wasn't my idea to come up with this real estate radio show, but it was brought to me, and I said, absolutely, I have faith that I can do this. So once I jumped in, then it forced me to research the market to be able to share that information. And then having guests in that were top developers or having the mayor in and having them share and talk helped me understand the market data as well as the nuances that were happening in the community, which always plays a big role into the real estate market as a whole. Yeah.
Do you think that, I guess as far as 2004, 2005 is concerned, I mean, there wasn't as much of an entertainment, sort of like nowadays it's hard not to go downtown and run into thousands of people. I mean, they're always downtown, but there really wasn't that aspect in 04, 05. Do you think that played a role in it taking you a little longer to kind of get your name out there? Because there wasn't those pockets of, hey, you can go to Mid-City and just meet people. You can go to just to Topgolf. You can go to all these different places now and just find people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so true because walking around downtown, I loved walking around downtown. Yeah. But nobody was downtown. That's why it was so great to walk around with your kids downtown. Not that it's not now. I still love. Actually, we moved our office downtown because I love being downtown so much. But it was definitely a different time. Yeah. Where it was mostly attorneys' offices around the square or empty buildings. And now it's so beautiful and vibrant. And I love that you can just walk downtown and meet tons of friends.
Tons of people. And I mean, like my aunt lives on Eustis, so we'd always go downtown. And it was just like one of those things that's like you'd see maybe 3 or 4 people. You would never there after dark. Yeah. And now it's like year round, cold, hot, no matter what, you can't not see people. And I love that aspect growing up and being a native of Huntsville, like seeing that is just amazing. When did you start seeing like that momentum of did the talk show kind of give you that momentum to start really kind of thinking about opening up stores or opening up locations in other cities like Guntersville and Jupiter, Florida? Or when did that kind of first arise?
That first came about in 2011 when I was realizing, maybe 2010, but right around there, because we didn't even open until 2009. And that actually was not a plan either. It was something that presented itself. Wow. It was early 2009, I was talking about it, but I really would have rather stayed where I was at because of being comfortable.
Yeah.
Complacency can be a good thing, but also it's not a good thing. So at that point in time, I was so focused with my blinders on, focusing on work, making sure my employees and agents were safe and secure, and I was taking care of our customers. I was on a roll.
Yeah.
I didn't need to make a change. I just wanted to stay focused and safe and secure. And I had some shifts that happened in that year of 2009 that made it so we had to get uncomfortable. We had to make a change. Yeah. But again, it's one of those, I feel it's a God thing that he was pushing me out of the nest, and it was the best thing that could have ever happened, because we would not have soared the way we did. And also what we did in the first 3 years was unprecedented.
Wow.
I had a business coach that is the largest business coach for real estate professionals and leaders in the world at that point in time.
Wow.
He had the largest number of agents that were in that top 1% of real estate agents in the world. And so even he was telling me, be prepared for these downturns, this downturn, this downturn. And we had nothing but up.
Wow.
So it was just perfect timing. Yeah. And something that maybe just following the right path.
Yeah. I mean, because so I guess I read like around 2014, your firm was listed on Wall Street Journal publication as a leading top 1% of teams in America. What was that distinction like? I mean, you just opened up the location in 2009, and then 5 years later, you're in the top 1%.
Yes.
Like, what was that something that you you saw coming, or is that something that you just, as it got to 2014, you're just doing the daily things to get better and grow and be successful, and then this distinction just kind of happens?
What I realized is, for my personality, that I'm always what's next person, and it's really hard for me to stop and say, I need to be celebrating this success right now.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm like, oh, great job. Well, that accomplished what I needed to from yesterday, but I'm only as good as what happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm always pushing for that next thing. So once we opened our office in 2009, 2010 and 11, we're starting to get some momentum, and now I have my mind wrapped around, now I own my own business. now I want to grow it, and I'm seeing the success in growth, which meant the community was supporting us just as much as we were continuing to support the community, which was our core value. Yeah. That's how we really started. So once I saw that synergy of we're supporting the community supporting us, now we can aspire to grow, and what's our next steps look like, that's when I started looking at different offices, but also had those aspirational goals of, I've got the coach that's coaching these other top agents around the world.
I can be that top agent too.
Why can't we be that?
Oh, of course.
So then I wanted to be on that list. First, I wanted to be in the top 100. Then I wanted to be in the top 50. Then I wanted to be in the top 25. So it was just one of those paths that I was like, yeah, Candy, we made it. And then she was like, you're not happy though. Yeah. And I know, next year we'll go to, next year let's hit 24.
Yeah, of course. I mean, how was it like navigating and managing different locations in different cities? I mean, from Huntsville to Guntersville to Jupiter, like how was that for you on a day-to-day basis, being able to manage and kind of being a part of everything, but knowing that you really can't always be front and center in Florida when you're in Huntsville?
I was out of my depth. It was a struggle, and it was something I needed to do. I don't regret doing that because I learned so much out of that. It hurt financially, emotionally, stress-wise, but it was something that was necessary for me to go through in order to get to the step that I needed to be at later in life. So it was very hard. I did my best to be in all those locations because I knew I needed to be, but you still are limited to number of hours in a day. I had to delegate to people that I could trust and that I was hoping would have that same ethics and best interest at heart for me and for my people and my customers and our agents, because they're all of our customers.
Yeah.
So it was so many aspects and moving parts to it. It was really hard to train people to manage those locations as well. For me, at that stage in my life and my career of kind of just almost falling into opening in 2009 and then thinking, oh yeah, I could start expanding in 2013, 14. Yeah. It was way too fast.
Yeah.
So we didn't fail, but we didn't accomplish the goals I wanted to accomplish. So before we did fail, I said it makes sense to cut ties.
Yeah.
The best thing that I can share and that I learned from my coach was to track everything. Track your expenses, track your income, know the ROI on everything that you are putting out there and receiving. So I was able to very quickly realize I had overextended myself with the people I had in place. Yeah. I just couldn't find the right people. And I couldn't be everywhere. So eventually we knew to cut ties at certain points, or that the numbers weren't moving. We thought the needle would be moving if I opened an office in, for example, County Line Road. But it didn't. I didn't receive more customers to the office into our business just for having an office on County Line Road. It ended up just being an expense because the agents would stop there to print something off the printer, grab some coffee, maybe hang out, write some contracts, but they never met clients there because it was a time where also things were shifting. It wasn't 2020 shift, but things were shifting where the consumer wanted you to meet. They want to know that you're a professional and that you have a professional office space, but they honestly didn't care where your office space was at. And they weren't really wanting to meet you there. They wanted you to be convenient for them.
Yeah.
So it might be meeting at a Starbucks before meeting them at the house if they're a first-time person and I need to be sure that I'm with a safe person that doesn't have ill intent towards me.
Yes.
Or I might say, you know what, I already have their pre-approval letter. I was able to make the necessary steps or take the necessary steps to know that I'll be safe, and then I could go and meet somebody at a house. So that's when we realized, well, the market's shifting already. We don't need so many locations on site. So that's when we were like, okay, let's go ahead and just quietly close them and bring the agents and everyone back to the main core office. And the funny thing is, the consumer never even noticed. It took about 4 years.
Wow.
In fact, actually 2 years ago, I had somebody asking me about my Gunnersville location. They couldn't find the office. And we shut that down a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that was purposeful.
Yeah.
Because there was no reason to say we're shutting down. We just knew consumers weren't going there anyway.
Yeah.
And so we didn't need the extra overhead.
Mm-hmm. So in 2015, you actually got to meet, you might have met her before, but Barbara Corcoran, of most notably the founder of New York's largest real estate company, investor in Shark Tank, and she even endorsed you as saying one of the best real estate minds in the country. And you were even on a commercial together that aired in Huntsville, I think. Yeah. What was that interaction like? How did that come to be?
The same person who actually called me out of the blue and got me to start a radio show he's a great media mind. I'm still very good friends with him. That, oddly enough, he found me. He contacted me. That started the story of getting to Barbara Corcoran.
Okay.
And so as we developed our relationship, and I decided I needed to end the radio show when I became, again, lack of time. It wasn't an ROI for me anymore. I enjoyed it, but I needed to be with my people more, and I needed to give more time to my children also.
Yeah.
So it was a step that I needed to make. He then said, hey, I've had this connection with Barbara Corcoran, and she is actually wanting to talk to, as an idea, because she's been with Shark Tank for a while at this point in time and just has so many great investments and businesses. And she said, I really would like to start understanding how I could refer business to, because as agents, we do that. We refer business to other agents. But I want to know only the top agents in other marketplaces, and they need to, she had a certain criteria.
Yeah, makes sense.
So he said, would you give me permission to go and speak on your behalf to her marketing people? And I said, well, absolutely. What's that going to hurt?
Yeah, of course.
So it ended up that she wanted to meet. I went to New York. That was my first trip to New York. So I was very excited.
This is 2014, 2015?
Yes, this was I think it was 2014, one of those years, 2014, 2015. So I was overwhelmed, very excited. Always wanted to go to New York, but this is my first trip to New York, and I'm meeting Barbara Corcoran.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal. She's a little dynamo. She's a little bit smaller than me, actually. I'm pretty petite, and she's just slightly, smaller than me. But what a big personality.
Yeah.
She just fills a room. I walked in. She already had a whole crew around her. She was just laughing and cutting up. She made it so easy to connect with her. And I could just tell that's why she is such a big celebrity as she is today.
Yeah.
It's because she's so easy to talk to. She connects with people well. She is smart. She's brilliant. She works hard. But all the way around, it was a great experience.
Yeah. How has that relationship kind of continued to grow over the years? I mean, it's been, eight, almost 9 years now since you've met her and since you first got introduced, first went to New York. Like, how has that relationship continued to grow and kind of as her guidance and her mentorship even kind of helped guide you along the last few years?
It has, because we had a 1 year, and she chooses to do what she wants to do. She's now, I say retired, but I say it with a pause because it's not retired like the normal retirement.
Yeah,
She's retired from her real estate corporation. Now she just focuses on her media and her investments and those kinds of things. So 1 year for her investors, she wanted to have a coaching year where she was offering advice. We just would call in as a group, get to talk to her once a month. That was phenomenal. So there's different years where I didn't gain as much, but it's only because she just didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
She had I don't know if she had the baby or she adopted, but anyway, she has a little son.
Yeah.
So she took a couple years with him, but overall, the relationship's been great. It's been good for me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's always affected my business, but it's, as entrepreneurs, we ourselves do create the culture of our business. Mm-hmm. So I know that she's had part in shaping that as well because of her influence on me.
Yeah, I mean, and culture in business is one of those things. It's hard to get completely right, but when you do, you want to nurture it and you want to keep it as close as you can because that really dictates everything.
Absolutely.
Because if you can get the culture in your business and your organization as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, that people want to be a part of and people are talking about it and people are excited to be there, then everything else kind of just lines up and kind of almost happens autonomously. But culture is so hard.
Yeah. And so it's been really cool. I've met her now in person, I think about 3 times, maybe 4 times now for different photo shoots or video shoots, commercial shoots. And then once I was actually asked to go speak on stage. I think that was 2014, it was probably 2015 or 16 because it was after meeting her by a couple years. And I was nominated as one of the top women of influence in the real estate and mortgage industry.
Wow.
And so she was a keynote speaker, and I was asked to speak on stage as a very baby, small side note speaker.
That's still pretty
cool. But it
cool.
was really cool to be able to see her in a back room where we were both getting changed and dressed and got a picture together. It was just kind of cool.
That's I mean, I couldn't, seeing Shark Tank and just seeing those shows and then being able to be in person and meeting her is just, I couldn't imagine. We've talked a lot about kind of the real estate in 2004 and kind of what the real estate was in Huntsville, but I kind of now want to transition to a little bit of kind of what the present day market looks like in Huntsville, because I mean, really since 2020, we've just seen an incredible uproar of just people coming to Huntsville, the real estate in Huntsville growing like crazy. When did you kind of first, is there a moment you can think of that you first kind of saw that the Huntsville market was going to be booming, and when was that moment?
It was probably after it boomed. Because what happened is we saw the market was doing phenomenal, and we knew that it had been now longer than 10 years since we had recession. And typically recessions happen on a 10-year cycle. So I kept thinking it's going to happen. And then when it didn't happen, and we've gone now 2 or 3 years into a great the market is just continuing to be wonderful. 2019, I was starting to think, are we invincible? Are we never going to have a recession again? This is a whole new world. It's awesome. Great for our children. But then March of 20, well, I guess it was really, we hear the rumblings in January of something's happening. In February, it's hitting us in other states. March, I still remember, it was the weekend of St. Patty's Day celebrations here in Huntsville, where the next day we're all supposed to be shut down, so we all go nuts on St. Patty's weekend celebrating downtown.
Of course.
I will not forget that because I have so many pictures of me and people I don't even know because I wanted to hug somebody.
Yeah.
Before I knew I couldn't hug anybody for an unknown time, period of time. So in March was pretty scary. And the way, everybody reacted differently. The way I reacted was rather than shutting down, I went into solution mode, we can't stop. The people are going to still have to buy houses. And also I was really worried about our employees and agents.
Yeah.
And I was worried they were going to be fearful of what was happening. And the only way I felt in my mind that I could overcome that fear was to come up with solutions for them and have a plan. Mm-hmm. Because with a plan, a strategy, you can have some security in that.
Yeah.
So I went immediately into writing. I have a whole file of COVID manuals of how our office was going to react, how our agents were going to react, how we were going to perceive ourselves to the public, how we were going to keep the public safe, how we were going to keep our agents safe. So I put all of these policies and procedures and protocols into place, but our office remained open the entire time.
Oh, wow.
It was all out of option. Our agents and employees could work from home if they wanted to, but I always told them, you're grown adults. You can make the choice if you want to come in. Our doors will remain locked. We put notices on the doors and on Google that we were by appointment only, but our office was available and open for them. There was a lot of agents that came to me from that time where, again, I feel like I went into a daze for 60 days because I was in such a groove of, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to create, this is what I'm going to create systems, and what our next steps were going to be, and focus on our technology that we already had at our hands and fingertips. We already subscribed to, but maybe clients or agents didn't feel comfortable utilizing it yet. I created all these little short training videos on how to utilize our 3D imaging, our virtual tours, Google goggles, all of that we already had.
Yeah.
I'm like, now you're kind of forced to have to use this.
Now figure it out.
Yeah. So now I went back to training, and it was a great time because of that.
Yeah.
So we had agents coming saying, I feel like I'm so secure. I'm so happy to be here. I had other agents reaching out from other brokerages going, what's going on over there? Because my office is shut down, and I'm hearing crickets. Nobody has talked to me for 60 days.
Yeah.
I feel alone. Now I'm locked in my house. I'm supposed to be ordering my groceries. Who am I supposed to be communicating with if my own broker or owner of the company isn't telling me any news of what's happening? How do I handle people? How do I handle clients? And from day one, I just thought that was natural. To me, it only made sense that we need to create a plan to keep our agents safe, which was my first customer, and then our consumers safe. Mm-hmm. So that really helped us by the time I came out of it. At the end of 2020, of my mind focusing on my agents and training them, keeping them safe, and teaching them how to utilize our technology that we already had in hand to better serve the clients and consumers, I realized at the end of 2020, we were having an awesome year.
Wow.
We did, of course, have a dip, just like everyone did, because everyone was scared. When consumers are scared, nothing happens.
Yeah.
So we had our dip, but then we had a quicker rise where other people were staying stagnant, and it was because they were quiet.
Yeah.
When you're fearful and you put your head in the ground, I mean, what's going to happen?
Yeah, everything's still going on around you. Like, you're still going to have to do something. So if you're not doing anything, I mean, like, I think at the moment you had to put these procedures together, I mean, you're being very reactive. Like, this is happening, I have to do this now. Like, there's no really way around it. Mm-hmm. And so you were very reactive at that moment. But then you could have easily said, okay, well, I got this is enough for now. Like, I don't need to do any more. Mm-hmm. But then you were like, maybe I should be a little bit more proactive in the sense of, like, let's really develop this whole thing, because we don't know when this is going to end. We don't know what's going to happen. So if we get everything possibly that we could, make sure everyone's safe, make sure all these procedures and things, the policies are put into place, that by the time, like you said, at the end of 2020, when you're like, well, it was a pretty good year besides that little dip, but then you're ready for 2021. Yes. And then I guess from then till now, it's just been all uphill.
Right. Yeah. So it was a phenomenal 21, phenomenal 22. 22 was not, there was a lot of concerns in 22 as well, which was interesting. Because I had some agents like, I don't, and I'm talking January of 22. We're like, I just don't know I think this is going to linger longer, and, meaning COVID. Yeah. And I just don't know what's going to happen. I'm like, dude, do you look back and see now that, these last few months, that's really been hard. Yeah. But early of 22 was not hard at all. That was a walk in the park.
And so was this at the time you were already at your downtown location, or was this in the transition between, because what year did you open up the downtown location right there?
That was this last April was when we moved in.
Okay. So that was past COVID. So you already had, so all those procedures and things for the office were at your other location.
Yes. Okay. Yes. We had actually wrote a contract on a building March 1st of 2020
Wow.
on Clinton.
Okay.
And then COVID hit and everything fell out. Like every single one of our contractors fell through.
Wow.
Everybody stopped working. And again, that was one of those blessings where we then had time to step back and go, in 3 months after I was done writing all the manuals and the trainings and the procedures, I looked back at our plans. I went, I think by the end of this year, we've already outgrown that building.
Wow.
So now we need to either put it back up for sale or put it up for lease. And then we ended up having another person come to us for a building that wasn't even on the market. And that was when our Franklin location.
Okay.
At the end of 2020, somebody came to us and said, hey, I heard that you think your Clinton building's too small. And we don't need to keep the building, but we would love to see a real estate brokerage downtown that was bringing people, because they knew our brokerage was an active brokerage. We're not a brokerage that just holds licenses, which that is normal for some. But for us, we have agents that are actively in there because of our training and what we offer at the brokerage. So it's a very active,
there's always people
office
coming
with
and
people.
going. Yes.
And they said they wanted people downtown.
Yeah. And I mean, like, and that, like, it's such a, I mean, your office now is amazing. Every time I walk by it or run by it, I'm like, oh, the patio looks amazing. Like, it's just all the glass. Like, it's an amazing building. And so I feel like, I mean, obviously, like, the Clinton location at the time was like, it was the next step. But then obviously the location you have now, like, you probably didn't even know it existed or knew that it was even going to be a possibility. But now you're like, I couldn't imagine being on Clinton now.
No, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're not on Clinton.
There's so much
construction.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a mess down there.
Yeah, my husband ended up putting his office over there on Clinton, and it's just the roads and sidewalks are all being torn up right now. It's terrible.
It'll be amazing very soon.
Yeah.
But I mean, the last year and a half has just been a mess, and so in the location on Franklin it's amazing.
It's so close to the square. I feel like everybody's gotten a little healthier in our office because now we love it to. Instead of just sitting in an office to have a meeting, if it's a one-on-one, it's nice to just get out and walk the square.
100%. It's the best. So I feel like I have to ask this question just because as someone that's as knowledgeable as you are on real estate, if anyone's listening, and they're in Huntsville, obviously most people are on the podcast. It's hard not to drive around Huntsville and see 1,000 different apartment buildings being built, new construction, multi-use, these shops down below, the residential up above. Do you think in your opinion, just from like what the market looks like in Huntsville with more and more people moving here, that the supply versus the demand for these apartments is warranted for how much we're building? Or do you think that, in the next year when a lot of these are finishing up construction in the next year and a half, that we're going to see an overabundance of these nice new apartments and not enough people to fill them?
That's a great question, Clark. And with what I have realized is back in 2020 and late 2020, early 2021 is when there was some closed door meetings, and it was specifically about housing. So I was invited in, and there was a challenge with people that were coming into the community that needed short-term housing, people that were being transferred with NASA, with Boeing, with these larger companies, especially out on the Arsenal, and they needed spaces for them to live. But there was not enough apartments.
Yeah.
There was a lack of apartments, and I wish I could remember the numbers from back then, but the number was outstanding. It was something like 17 to 18,000 that they were short back then.
Wow.
So I knew that there was a need, but I stopped tracking or following because I don't deal in apartments or rentals at all. We only focus on residential sales. So when it's a couple years later, I was thinking, first, I'm so glad that they're building, and we definitely need it. And we do have people that are transferring here for short term, maybe just to see if they're going to take the job. They need temporary housing, 3 to 6 months, and then they're going to buy with us. So we hear about these people also, and we'd help them get them set up. But now at this point, I'm like, I do start to wonder, did we push too hard to say we need apartments? And now we have such an overabundance. The other thing is that the prices have gone up on rentals quite a bit. Oh, my
goodness.
So it's phenomenal for our investors who kept purchasing investment properties and multi-unit buildings, which, I couldn't believe the rent rolls that some of our investors are getting, where 3 years ago it was $400 to $450 for this little small homes.
Yeah.
And now they're getting $1,100 and $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
In just a couple years.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
I mean,
for them, but Wow.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, like it's hard. I mean, we're at Lincoln Mill at my office right now in the studio, and I mean, out our back window, you see the apartments being built right there on the train tracks. Yeah. And I mean, I drive down Pratt every day on the way home, and there's brand new apartments being built there. I mean, there's 2 at the Big Spring Park. So it's hard not to just be like, this is a lot of apartments, and yes. I love that they're bringing new retail in. I love that they're having these apartments on Pratt, because like with multi-use down below, more restaurants, more bar, like more things for me to walk to and me to enjoy. But is it going to be empty up above? And so it'd be interesting to see. I know when I had Dennis Mattson on, the city planner for Huntsville, he talked about those numbers of just being, for years Huntsville was way behind on having apartments. And he said, really, he thinks, I mean, his opinion was that, we've got to that point now where everything that's being built is what's going to be built. And now they're just going to finish those. And then we're just going to be like plateauing in the sense of not any more developments happening. But there's a lot, I mean, there's still a lot going on. So it's hard to wrap your head around it, because it's just like, I still think of Huntsville as this small city. And then there are still pockets like that. I mean, you drive into South Huntsville, it still feels like it was when I grew up in South Huntsville. It hasn't really changed. And so it's interesting just to see all these things happening. And it's like, is this really what's going to happen to Huntsville? Maybe. I don't know.
It might. And because our inventory is also low in residential real estate. So we do have people who are being transferred in with the FBI, and they can't find a place because either construction is going to be too long and they refuse to live in a temporary apartment for 6 months. And there's not enough residential homes for sale that they could buy. So they're like, all right, well, let's just keep looking, keep us on your radar, but I'm going to go take an apartment for a year. So there is a lot of that as well.
It's crazy. So what sort of advice would you give to someone that is maybe listening, that's looking to maybe purchase their first home here in 2023 or even in the next few years, as it is getting tougher and tougher for those first-time home buyers, or really anybody, to find a home here in Huntsville?
It really is. The first step is to get your finances in order. Of course, I always talk to people about budgeting. Make sure that figure out that payment that you're comfortable with, because sometimes you'll go and you'll get approved, and then you find out, well, I'm approved for $3,500 a month, but I really only feel comfortable at $2,500 a month. So it's not really about going just to get whatever you can afford. First, see what you feel comfortable with, and then go see what you can afford. Hopefully, it's not the other way around, that you're like, I'm comfortable with $2,500, but I can only afford $1,800.
Yeah.
But a lot of times what I do see is that people find out they're approved for much more than they can afford, or what they feel comfortable. I shouldn't say can't afford, feel comfortable with. Yeah. And that's, I feel, the most important next step. And then either find somebody that you can get financing with, or you can talk to your real estate advisor, because your real estate advisor is going to know the people who really know the financing industry well and not brand new. Mm-hmm. Just as with this market shift, which has been an increase in real estate market, of course, it appears easy. Mm-hmm. So that means that we have an influx in new realtors, which don't really know what they're doing. They don't have the training or available to them, or whatever it might be. Yeah. Same thing with lenders. Yeah. So there's a lot of lenders out there that are causing challenges. People see it and they're like, gosh, why in the world is there another delay? It's like, because they forgot to check a box, or because they weren't fully listening to hear what was needed from that buyer. So it's really important to make sure that you are connected to, one, a professional real estate person who has a track record of experience, and then two, connect to a person that really knows finance and has a track record in the finance industry.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I, we just purchased our first house in February, I guess it was. And it was interesting talking with our real estate agent. It was just like, she was excited for the times now that people are getting, like, they last a little bit longer. So they're having this ability for first time home buyers to actually like see properties and not be like, we have to go sight unseen and just throw money at it and hope it's going to be great. And she said she saw a lot of people that she wouldn't recommend to not get an inspection. But at the time when the market was booming in 2021, it was just like, we just need a house. Like this is going so quick. And a lot of people were then having, the consequences of that later down the road. And it is interesting. I mean, being a small business owner like myself, it was a very, very difficult thing to get approved. And it was one of those things. It was headaches, and more headaches. But it's one of those things that's, getting into the door into the real estate market is one of those things it builds equity. It's something that you own, and you're able to kind of see the fruits of it as throughout the years. And so it's a tough thing, but I recommend it to anybody that can do it.
Oh yeah, real estate's a safe investment.
Yes, it is. I think I'm always interested on this aspect too, but there's that, I mean, with Huntsville continuing to grow and expand, I mean, there's a lot of people getting into commercial stuff, into rental properties, whatever that might look like. How would you suggest someone in 2023 to get into something like that? I mean, it's easy to look back and say 10 years ago, you should definitely buy that property. It's going to be amazing in 10 years. Right. But now in 2023, what sort of properties are going to be that same amazing in 10 years? And how, I mean, it's a lot more difficult to get into a property now as a rental or as a residential thing or as an investment than it was in 2010, 20, like, I mean, it's just so much tougher.
And you have to think about the way the consumers are now using commercial real estate as well. For example, for my real estate office, consumers already were not wanting to go to a residential brokerage as much building. But after COVID, they really didn't want to come. So that's why you see so many strip malls with all these empty buildings that are up for lease. And it's because people realized, oh, wait, we don't need to have a brick and mortar building any longer.
Yeah.
It depends on your purpose and your culture and what's needed for your company. But most of them are now able to do things virtually or just a very small, co-share office space, which I love those. I think that's just such an efficient way to utilize space. But to answer your question, to how to jump into investments, for me, I really do love real estate investments. And that means when I'm talking residential, what we call residential real estate investments is anything that's a fourplex or less.
Okay.
So it's a single family home or a duplex or a quadplex or a fourplex. And those are always very strong investments. They're actually very hard to find as well. So it's a constant hunt for us because we do have so many people here locally that we want to help find investment properties. But on the other hand, we have so many people out of state who have acknowledged and see that Huntsville is no longer a secret.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about Huntsville, so they want to invest their dollars here in Huntsville because they see the strong market that we have, which means that they're buying up all of our investment properties.
Yeah.
And we really, not that we don't want to have other people in here, it's just that we really do our best to help local people who live here, work here, invest here with their own time, money, energy. We want to make sure that they're getting the investment properties that they want. So that's what, as an agent, that's what we as brokers focus on as well. To get into other commercial buildings that are over that fourplex. So say apartment buildings now is what we're really thinking about when it's over 5 units. Or commercial buildings. I love commercial buildings. I have several investments in town. I'm not scared of them. But it's really good to get with somebody who is a professional and knows that industry. Even for myself, I have a book of 10 commercial brokers that I call on depending on if I want a warehouse building or if I want a retail space or if I'm looking for apartment complexes. They all specialize, and I appreciate that because then they get really good at what they're doing. And another unique factor about Huntsville, which most people don't know, since I've sold real estate in Chicago and I've sold real estate in South Florida, I've realized this is very unique about Huntsville. And in my talking to agents around the world, most commercial brokers are not using the multiple listing services that are available to them as commercial brokers. And it's because there's so many that have been in this market for so long, they know so many people, that they're like, why? Why do I need to do that? If I focus on warehouses, everybody comes to me about warehouses. If they want to sell their warehouse, they know who to reach out to.
Yeah.
If they're already local. And so they reach out to the person that is the top or the best that they know. And then they also already have a whole pocket full of buyers that they can call and let them know when it's available. So, I mean, just like that's why I have them in my phone where I'm like, okay, when I wanted to liquidate one of my properties, I just sent out a quick text to 10 of them and say, hey, this building's coming up. It's got this cap rate. I'm giving you a 1 week heads up before I decide to put it on the market because I do use the MLS. I'll put it on the multiple listing service. But I also am going to be respectful to give the brokers that I know are strong and have the right connectivity in town. I'm going to give them a heads up.
Yeah, and it's like they've helped you get that property too. So it's like, why not have them help you sell the property too?
Yes.
And so I think
I love symbiotic relationships.
Yeah, and I mean, and like one thing that I've realized over the years of doing this is that most people are even if it's like people you think that you're never going to be able to talk to, or you're never like, they never take the time of the day to actually like answer a question or sit down and talk with you, they're pretty easy to just to like email and just say, hey, like would love to chat sometime. I'm interested in this. I see you're really good at this. Would you have a time to grab a coffee? And most people are sure, like let's find a time. And so I think that's what I would recommend to anyone listening that's like, hey, there's this mentor out, there's just someone that I really want to talk with, just message them. I mean, that's what I do 95% of the time, and it seems to work. And so I would highly suggest it. As someone as successful as you are over the course of your career, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone that's listening that you wish you would have known when you first began your career?
That's a great question. The one piece of advice that I wish I knew was hire a business coach immediately. Even though you feel like you can't afford it, you will lose so much money in that time that you're taking to build something. Even with the pennies that you have, if you invested those pennies into a business coach that has already been there, done it, or is advising other people successfully who have been there, done it, you're going to get there a lot quicker. And you're in turn going to save dimes and quarters rather than those pennies that you were hanging on to to be able to catapult that business so much quicker.
Yeah, I got a business coach actually a little over a year ago, I guess almost 2 years now we've been doing it, and it was by far the best decision ever. I couldn't imagine, like we have weekly calls, and and just having him there as someone who is like, hey, like I'm new to this. Like I think all business owners, I think they're really, there's two roles you play. You play the role of the service provider. You're really good at that service. That's why you started the business. Like you're really good at making coffee. You're really good at making food. You're really good at brewing beer, whatever that might be. But on the flip side, you have to be a business owner. And that business owner is a tool and a skill that you probably don't know very much about. And you're really good at service provider. And that business, that being that owner and that business owner is what the business coach helps you become better at. Because the services the services are great. Like you're really good at what you do, but you just don't know how to run a business. And so I think that's what you have to split the difference. There's a huge difference in working on the business and in the business. And you work in the business when you're doing all the day-to-day stuff, all the stuff that you have to do to make money. But when you work on the business, you get to think about how can I grow and how can I expand and be better at what I'm doing. And that's when a business coach helps greatly on. One of the things I think is that I gain a lot of information from and a lot of resources from are books too. And we talked a little bit about it off air, but is there one or two books that you would recommend to anyone that's listening that kind of have helped you throughout your career?
Absolutely. The very first, in fact, I have a reading list. I do love books. I just think it's pivotal to anybody's success, no matter what aspect of life you want to be in. And so if you're constantly reading or listening to an Audible or listening to a podcast, if you're constantly learning, then you're going to continue to grow in your life. And I feel if you don't, then you just become stagnant, complacent, and it's just like a plant. You start withering.
Yeah.
So we have a required reading list, depending on if you're an employer, an agent, required or suggested. And the first one that I always recommend for our agents is Ninja Selling.
Okay.
It's a great book, as in what I was just sharing off air with you on, that I noticed you have principles on your desk. That is a phenomenal book. It's a phenomenal business book that you can take practical knowledge and implement it into any business. Same thing with Ninja Selling. It's only about being a people person. It's not, we don't sell refrigerators. I mean, that's boring. And you don't sell a house. It's honestly, it's a roof over somebody's head. What we sell is a lifestyle that somebody has. And I don't know what your lifestyle is. I have to talk to you and understand your needs, your wants, your desires, ask the right questions to help you explain it. Because sometimes people don't even know themselves. They're like, oh gosh, my lifestyle, I don't know. I go to work and then I come home and I, watch, whatever. I can't even think of a TV show. I was going to say a TV show at 8:30. But whatever that is, people start getting into their rut and then they forget what their lifestyle is or what they want out of life. And so that's what makes my job fun and our agent's job fun, is it's helping people understand how do they want to live, what's the lifestyle they want to live, and then we help them go on the hunt to find the house that will suit their needs.
Yeah.
But that book, it really helps people get out of their heads, because they'll go get their real estate license and then you have to go pass the test, and it's really a difficult test, and you're thinking about all these legal mumbo jumbo things that doesn't really care. No, the consumer does not care how many square feet are in a mile.
100%.
I mean, I know, but why?
Yeah.
You could Google it.
Yeah.
It's not something that's necessary to learn. So you get so stuck in your head just because you went through the course of obtaining your license and passing all of this information that you needed to have your license. Now we need to teach them how to actually sell real estate. And actually selling real estate is being a good listener and asking the right questions to people. And sure, we have to navigate a lot of things for safety and security of a home, but that's something that's easily learned and also not taught in school either.
Yeah.
So we need to first teach them how to deal with people and get out of their heads and how to better serve people. So
Yeah.
Ninja Selling is a phenomenal book on that. And there's a lot of people who look at it, even if they're not in residential real estate, just in the aspect of dealing in sales. It's a great book.
So, I mean, business is hard, and it just continues to get harder and harder, no matter what level you are at. You know, having one location to having 3 locations to then having just one huge location. I mean, it just gets harder and harder at every level, at every step. What's one lesson that even today, as far as your career, that you're continuously reminded about?
It's that we're in a people business, and we cannot control the situations or outcomes of other people. Everybody has an ideal situation for them. And even though you may know the best outcome for the situation that you've heard that they want, all you can do is be an advisor. So that's what is sometimes hard when you want more for someone than they want for themselves. I find that with myself, because now I am an advisor and I coach more than anything else. And so as a coach, I'm talking to, and this goes both with consumers or agents, but let's say an agent, for example. So I'm coaching an agent on how to get things strategized with their time management, their life, how they're living, getting their health on track. And because I do my best to coach everything from, the mental mindsets to actual practical knowledge. And then I see them keep running into the same rut or doing the same thing that is self-sabotaging at times, and I'll keep pointing that out, but I can't make them stop. They have to have their own free will. They have to decide to stop, and that's sometimes it's hard for me. I think it's probably hard for a lot of people when they same as being a parent, when you're like, don't touch that, it's hot. Don't touch that, it's hot. Damn, you just touched it. I told you it's hot. It's hard when you want more for them than they want for themselves.
Yeah, especially like as you see maybe mistakes that they're making and that you've made, and you're like, don't make that mistake. Like, I made it. Don't do it. And then they call you 3 weeks later, I made that mistake. It's like, what did you not listen to anything I've said over the last 3 weeks?
Or sometimes they'll say, why did you not tell me?
It's like
what?
It's like, I just need to walk around the square with a bullhorn and just yell it, because I feel like that's the only way you're going to understand it. I mean, thinking through your career, I mean, you started as got into real estate in 1999. This is 2023 today. How much of your success would you contribute to being in the right place at the right time versus how much would you contribute to your hard work?
Oh, gosh. It's such a... I mean, how can you be at the right place at the right time without putting in the work? We don't just roll out of bed and happen to be in the right place at the right time. I really do believe you have to put in the hard work in order to get yourself to the right place at the right time. Because it takes work, it takes effort. It's just like exercise. You can say I want to be fit, but you can say it all you want. It takes the dedication to actually put in the time and the commitment, consistency to be able to get there. And so with hard work, I feel it's the same thing, or with business, it's the same thing. You have to be consistent, and that does take hard work, because even when you're failing, or it feels like you're failing, or it's taking longer than you want, if you're an impatient person like me, you're like, gosh, I've been doing the same thing for 4 months. Why am I not seeing the results?
Yeah.
But then all of 6 months is when that compound effect starts.
Yeah. And
then you start seeing that momentum building, and then you're like, oh, thank goodness I hung on. But what if you didn't? What if at 5 months you stopped?
Yeah. And I think it's, it's that hard, like, without hard work, you said you wouldn't get in that right place. But you can often be in the right place and not have the hard work to help you get through that and be successful with it. Like, you're often given opportunities in life. Some you might not even realize you were given that opportunity, And some of them you might not even have capitalized on the opportunity you were given, but you just constantly have to be the best you can be, and constantly working hard and being just dialed in at all times, because when those opportunities do arise, you just got to capitalize it. And it is tough sometimes, but being able to look back on it, especially in a career like yourself, and see like, wow, like there's been so many different moments of those. Like I did not think I was going to get through that 1 month. I made it through, and then that next month we had a great month, and it was just like fantastic. And so there's always moments like that.
Yeah, I think there's just always opportunities out there. It just depends on how you look at them.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so many things throughout the whole story that I've just shared today that I'm like, I don't know how we got there, but we were there, and it's because the opportunity presented itself, and I was open to that opportunity, where some may not be ready for it. I probably have also passed opportunities.
Yeah.
I know for sure on some residential purchases where I'm like, oh man, why did I not? I had fear and I didn't do it. But it's being open, and so it just takes us being ready.
Yeah. So for anyone that's listening that wants to connect, is interested in maybe even purchasing a home, interested in talking about real estate, where can they find out more information about you and get connected and kind of just be involved?
Well, I would love it if they would follow me. I do. We have a website, amandahoward.com or amandahowardrealestate.com. They go to the same place. And we put out a blog there, and as well as we have a lot of great information about neighborhoods, homes available for sale, but also I really like the neighborhood aspects and our blogs. I really do my best to come up with something that's going to be informative. It's not just me. It's other agents and professionals as well, but it's a lot of content is my own. And then on my social media channels, on Sundays is what I've been committed to this year, is that every Sunday I put out something that I hope is of value to people who are following me, whether sometimes it's agent related, sometimes it's consumer related. I really like to mix it up because I do have quite a wide audience, and I have different passions just like everyone does. So I love inspiring young women, and I have quite a few that follow me on that. So it's been encouraging me to share a little bit more on entrepreneurship or getting your mental state in the right frame of mind, or looking at life through a different lens. Like that was another big topic recently. So I share about both residential real estate, the market itself, which is completely crazy right now. So there's been a lot to share on that.
Yes, I bet.
And then, of course, there's just life.
Yeah, and we'll have all your social media stuff in the episode notes, so anyone that's listening can then go to the episode notes and find you on every platform all over the place and wherever is the best place. But I thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me today. I love learning more about your story, and I continue to look forward to the success you'll have in Huntsville and around the world for years to come.
Well, thank you, Clark.